Tensions have reached a 50-year high between Palestinians and the Israeli occupation. For the first time in 50 years, Palestinians have bulldozed the fences, escaped their confines, and taken over multiple IDF bases, as well as several Israeli settlements.
And Israel has now imposed what it calls a total blockade on the enclave, cutting off food, fuel, water, and electricity. It is part of the most serious escalation in decades. More than 500 Palestinians and 800 Israelis have been killed since Hamas's infiltration south of Israel on Saturday.
Hundreds of Palestinian and Israeli civilians are now dead due to what only can be described as inevitable actions from an occupied force against their oppressor. People like to make the absurdist claim that this conflict between Palestine and Israel is somehow really complex and hard to wrap our heads around. But in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Seeing this as more of a complex issue where it is wrong what's going on, and that there's also a way to do this that Israel still exists and is supported.
So it's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus. They killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it, and the question is rights or not. So that's it. It's not complicated.
Conflicts like these that are headlined in global press can receive all sorts of different framing. And you can pretty much tell which media source people are getting their information from simply by the things they're saying. One media source I come back to time and time again, not to get my information from, but rather to see what kind of propaganda is currently being spread, is everyone's favorite propagandist, Philip DeFranco.
Sup, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up. Make sure you hit that like button, otherwise I will punch you in the throat, and let's just jump into it.
At this point, most leftists and even many liberals understand that Philip DeFranco simply spreads imperialist propaganda on his TikTok. That's a clear fact at this point. And when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, I kind of expected Philip DeFranco to have a little bit more of a nuanced take on the matter, but frankly, I think I gave Philip the State Department a little bit too much credit. And I didn't even seek out these videos from Philip DeFranco. These were simply given to me on my TikTok For You page as some sort of good journalism, and they thought I should see it. So let's take a look at the few TikToks that he's already made about the conflict and see how many of them are biased against Palestine and in support of Israel's actions against Palestinians. This was the first TikTok Philip DeFranco released on the topic.
Israel is at war, with Hamas reportedly launching a massive sneak attack on Israel that's invaded the country via land, air, and sea. And they've reportedly captured and are occupying several cities in Israel and have been killing civilians in those cities. With Israel saying at least 100 Israelis have been killed so far and at least 1,000 are injured, with those numbers expected to grow. There have also been reports that at least 100 Israelis have been kidnapped and are being held as hostages, some of which have allegedly been brought back to Gaza, with Hamas reportedly threatening to execute them. And this, as reports say, that more than 5,000 rockets have been fired at Israel. Hamas also claimed it captured senior Israeli officials, including a former general. And all of this has been described as a very sophisticated attack. And notably, the timing of all this is that we're looking at the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, with Israel promising a biblical response and adding that Hamas has opened the gates to hell. So follow to stay in the loop.
So this is somewhat unbiased reporting from Philip DeFranco. It's sort of just laying out the timeline of things that have happened up until that point. However, it is really strange, but not really surprising, that he doesn't really include any context on the matter about why Hamas is doing these things and the actions leading up to it over the past, 70 years. The thing that stuck out to me the most about this TikTok actually is the comment section. It's very typical for a Philip DeFranco TikTok comment section to be full of fascists. But surprisingly, this comment section was full of support for Hamas and Palestine as a whole in their fight against Israel's occupation.
Israel is at war, with Hamas reportedly launching a massive sneak attack on Israel that's invaded the country via land, air, and sea. And they've reportedly captured and are occupying several cities in Israel and have been killing civilians in those cities.
In Philip DeFranco's next TikTok on the matter, he quickly brushes past the fact that Israel shut off the power to Gaza. Their entire electrical grid was shut off by Israel.
Israel has cut all power to Gaza as it begins its operation.
This is a blatant war crime. Yet for whatever reason, Philip DeFranco just brushes past it as if it's just, that's just another thing that happened. I don't really have to talk anymore about it. Like Michael Brooks illustrated at the beginning of this video right here, if these actions and if this timeline was, for whatever reason, swapped, and it was a different country or a different people that were experiencing these actions, it would be so much easier to understand, and Philip DeFranco's take on the matter would be a lot different. However, because it's put on some Islamic group that we can just, they're terrorists, it's like, for whatever reason, Philip DeFranco doesn't even care, they shut off their power. I don't blame him. I would have done it too. Philip DeFranco also does this thing where he quotes people. Instead of saying straight up facts, he says Hamas said or Palestinians said.
More than 290 Israelis have reportedly been killed so far, and over 1,500 people have been wounded, though both numbers are expected to grow drastically. Meanwhile, Palestine says that at least 232 people have been killed in Israel's attacks, with Israel saying it's going to change the face of reality in Gaza for the next 50 years, and adding what was will be no more. Meanwhile, Palestine has reportedly asked France to intervene to stop what it called Israeli aggression.
And in this TikTok, he really hits the air quotes on Israeli aggression. He's like, they say it's Israeli aggression, but come on. They're just defending Israel. Come on now. It's the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. They're just defending Israel.
Reporting, we're seeing things like a 12-year-old and 16-year-old reportedly being among the hostages Hamas took. Massive rocket barrages are repeatedly being launched to Tel Aviv from Gaza, and there are several reports of civilians being hit. There have also been reports that the Iron Dome seems to not be operating correctly or is perhaps being overwhelmed. This as Israel has reportedly bombed the home of the leader of Hamas, and Hamas saying it's expanding the war to the West Bank. And President Biden has since made a national address saying the United States stands with Israel and will ensure that they have what they need. So follow to stay in the loop.
It's really gross how Philip DeFranco chooses to only focus on the sort of extreme actions that Hamas is taking against Israel, and sort of on the forefront of these journalistic stories that he's writing. He just talks about sort of rumors that Hamas is doing without really putting any context in the picture. So at the end of it, his viewers are really just going to be mad at Hamas. They're going to think Israel is entirely victims, and people are just going to want to put more force on Hamas. That's all these TikToks are producing. And one thing he really neglects to even talk about is the constant shelling of Gaza that we've been seeing ever since their initial attacks on Israel. I mean, they bombed and destroyed the Gaza building, the second tallest building in Gaza, which was home to 100 apartment units and several media outlets on the Gaza Strip. I mean, blatant war crimes that he's just not mentioning.
All right. Yumna, please take cover. If you are in a position to do so safely, you can explain to us what we're happening. If you are not in a position to do so safely,
Yes.
then please get to safety.
No, it's okay. This is a missile attack on Palestine Tower, right in the middle of Gaza City.
More just simply that the IRGC and the Islamic Republic are very intent on, eradicating Israel. They are
no, but Piotr, the question again is, and this is something that's been a challenge for a little bit.
Now, the comment section under this TikTok is extremely typical for a Philip DeFranco TikTok. Hamas don't want peace. The religion of peace never wants peace until the world is under their order. Annihilate them. Crusade them. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you joking? The fact that this is even still up baffles me. I know Philip DeFranco looks at comments and stuff. The fact that this is even up still is insane to me. Crusade them? This is literally calling for genocide. That's what Philip DeFranco's TikToks are producing. People are calling for genocide of Gazans. Hamas is a terror organization. We need to support Israel, and they have the right to defend and attack. I just love these comments because it always brings me back to this classic meme. You know, Israel is just bombarding Palestine and Gaza over and over and over again. And then Gaza, they retaliate with one little bomb, only for Israel to say, no more Mr. Nice Guy, and they just keep on bombarding. That's exactly what this comment is, you know, illustrating the parody of. It's like, oh, they're just defending an attack. At least one comment in this comment section is anti-Philip DeFranco and in support of Palestine. Damn, it's almost like if they didn't kill Palestinian children and treat these people as trash, that none of this would have happened.
Israel has called on all Palestinian civilians to immediately leave Gaza before it turns it into rubble, though many of those Palestinians saying leave to where? Saying there's nowhere they can safely go. Also, Israel is beginning a naval bombardment of Gaza while it conducts a massive airstrike campaign. Israeli tanks have reportedly been moved to the border and are reportedly considering destroying Gaza's water supply as well as cutting it off from Egypt so supplies can't come in.
Just another instance of Philip DeFranco brushing past war crimes. Turning off their water supply? Are you joking, Philip DeFranco? No shit, that's a war crime. Bro just says that casually. It's like, oh yeah, we just gotta control Hamas so we can turn off their water supply. What?
Israel has called on all Palestinian civilians to immediately leave Gaza before it turns it into rubble, though many of those Palestinians saying leave to where? Saying there's nowhere they can safely go.
Philip DeFranco always sits on the fence. But he can't sit on the fence on this one. He says, Palestinians are saying there's nowhere to safely go. No, Philip. There literally is nowhere to go. They're not just saying that. There's nowhere to go. It's a prison. It's a f***ing prison. Through these 3 TikToks, Philip DeFranco has done nothing but paint Hamas as well as the rest of Palestine as evil, and has only painted Israel as the victim. Of course, the Israeli civilians that unfortunately were killed are absolutely victims. No one deserves to die, obviously. But when you only focus on these attacks and not the ongoing shelling of Gaza as we speak, literally hundreds of thousands of Palestinians just in the past 3 days have been completely displaced and have nowhere to go. When you don't focus on that at all, and only the attacks on Israel, your audience is going to be completely misguided on the entire situation. And they're going to come to the conclusion that Palestine is the problem, not the Israeli occupation. I haven't given up on Philip DeFranco yet, but ultimately, I thought he would have a much different take on the matter, at least slightly more nuanced. And I think this reporting ultimately solidifies that Philip DeFranco's TikTok is somehow run by some third-party defense administrator looking to spread blatant imperialist propaganda. Yet for whatever reason, even if this is the case, Philip DeFranco agrees to do the voiceover. Unless it's somehow some type of AI. I mean, I don't think it is. It sounds a lot like him. I don't know why he agrees to say this stuff. And that's me giving him the benefit of the doubt. He probably is writing this stuff, or at least approving it all the way through. Thanks so much for watching this video. I'll be including some resources and better journalistic writing on this conflict in the description of this video. Because Philip DeFranco is the last person you should be listening to if you want to learn the truth about this conflict. As days go by, don't fall for Zionist propaganda. Hamas is not a terrorist organization. They are the leading governmental body of an oppressed and brutalized nation of 2 million people. Peace and love, and free Palestine.